How did we go from muskets and bows and arrows to nukes and space in less than 200 years, when humans have been around for 600k to 2 million years? It's the law of accelerating returns. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/the_law_of_accelerating_returns. In action, progress speeds up over time and is currently moving very fast. Because technological advances occurred exponentially rather than just additively. So both of those numbers for how long we've been around are incorrect. The Homo sapiens species emerged about 300k years ago. There have been other species of human, but they did not all have our same cognitive ability. Homo heidelbergensis were known to use tools, for example, but their technology seemed to remain fairly primitive. The major answer to your question is the development of agriculture about 10 to 12k years ago. This took us from nomadic hunter-gatherers to small farming communities. With food more or less handled, at least relative to the old way, we were able to focus on new things. One of those being the development and advancement of technology. And as for how technology advances so quickly, because of our extensive record-keeping and documentation, each new generation has the wealth of knowledge of the prior generations to build on. A wealth of knowledge that is exponentially expanding. Science bitch. It works. Many people here are partially correct. Yes, some innovations accelerate innovation exponentially rather than linearly, like the printing press, the combustion engine etc. But in the mid-17th century, two things happened that fundamentally accelerated everything. Francis Bacon published the Novum Organum, which described for the first time what modern scientists would recognize as the beginnings of the modern scientific method. And Galileo Galilei fused mathematics and experimentation in groundbreaking ways to predict and test physics. Without the influence of Bacon and Galilei, we would not have shifted as strongly to a rigorous scientific approach. This approach created the substrate into which all other innovation was plunged. It's this substrate that is now under attack today. Population density and the expansion of large cities gives more people the opportunity to explore and innovate. Once you have new innovations, more opportunities spawn from those innovations. Not to mention, public health improved and people's access to education improved, giving people ample opportunities to explore unique niches of science and technology. We've been using firearms of one sort or another longer than 200 years. But to answer simply, once you have longer-term societies, innovations have time to develop. Technology levels go up in stable cultures. Steam engine/internal combustion engine. It multiplied many times the amount of work that could be done by one man. It's so amazing to read these responses from individuals that understand time isn't relevant to expansion. It's so easy to slip into the pitfall of questioning the validity of technological advancement when you set it against the timeline of human evolution. Human technological advancement is much like the timeline we know to be true of the Big Bang Theory. 200 years sat against the backdrop of human evolution is just a blink. But everything starts somewhere, and like a boulder rolling down the hill, it picks up momentum. Sure, that boulder will hit bumps and change its course. But it will never stop picking up momentum. It's incredible when you really start to consider it. With what we've accomplished in 200 years and what is to become in the next 50, who knows what's next? Think forward, be grounded and elect people who celebrate humanity and encourage progress. We're literally just getting started. Let's not fuck it up. Technology doesn't add, it multiplies. For 99% of human history, we were just trying to survive the winter. But knowledge is cumulative. Once we invented the printing press, ideas could outlive their creators. Once we harnessed electricity, we automated thought that we spent 200,000 years building the foundation, and now we are just stacking the bricks at lightning speed. We didn't speed up, we just finally stopped losing our notes. Hyper-focused on war and power. We accelerated and expanded our ability to communicate and exchange ideas. Fortunately and unfortunately, many of those ideas were spun from the scientific method. How many people do you think had the time to invent stuff 10,000 years ago? We've gone from needing almost the entire population to be focused on survival-related activities to most of the population focusing on other things, which frees up a lot of manpower for innovation. Because it took agricultural needs to fall to have time for innovation. 300 years ago is generally when agriculture starting be less all-consuming and significant resources could be put elsewhere like R&D. In the immortal words of the Venture brothers, science. Access to education. There were smart people born as peasants who died without ever having access to a book or even learning to read. As more people are able to contribute to human advancement, it speeds up. We did that in under 100 years. Muskets were used in Civil War. Nukes and space were both achieved by the 1960s, less than 100 years later. The scientific method. Deadly serious, we went from throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck, and roughly drawing analogies based on individual observations, to a systemized, organized effort to unravel the secrets of this absurd reality we find ourselves inside. That made it a lot easier, as now every single mathematician didn't have to reinvent the wheel, and an engineer can read blueprints made 100 years ago with confidence the measurements are close enough for government work. One thing continued to lead to another like that, directly as a result of the scientific method. Just wait, the speed of technology improvements is still accelerating. Once AIs can build the next generation of AIs which can build the next generation of AIs etc., we won't even be able to understand the new generations. The AIs will invent changes in medicine, materials, energy, etc. The moment we cannot predict the future because it changes too fast for us to understand is called the singularity, and we are almost there now. Maybe just another 5 to 10 years. Just look how much AIs have improved in 3 years. As we advance, and grow in size, there's more people to continue working in just about every field imaginable. How many DRs do we have today compared to 200 years ago? How many did we have 200 years ago compared to 400 years ago? They're constantly expanding and building on the work collected in the past. John Hopkins was one businessman that died in 1873. How many DRs have come and gone because he wanted to build a school, plant trees you won't live to see the shade of? Perhaps one day they will grow into a forest. Because progress isn't linear. It's exponential. It's like waiting 40 minutes for a bus, then 3 show up at once. The first 199,800 years were the waiting. The last 200 years were the buses. Not enough is being said about the effect of population. If the number of discoveries and accomplishments is proportion to the population, we have 50 times the population now than we had 2,000 years ago. So we can do in 2 years what it used to take a century to do. It might actually be worse than that if you consider the difficulty of communicating discoveries to the entire human race back then. Your effective population was effectively several times smaller, so it might be we can do in 1 year what it took a smaller population several centuries to accomplish. They were not using bows and arrows alongside muskets in 1816. Chemistry. But your time scale is off. We've had bows for millennia, and muskets, for more than 400 years, so progress is more gradual than you think. We have amnesia as a race, with echoes of fragmented memories captured in sacred texts, about floods and natural disasters destroying great civilizations. I think we've made significant progress many times before. It strikes me as unlikely that we'd achieve this much in 500 years but never previously in 500,000 plus. If a Homo sapien child was somehow brought to modern times and dropped in a school in 2026, they'd be just as capable at learning as any child today. It's easy to think of people from the past as primitive, but they were just as complex and intelligent as us.